There's no football match today, no World Cup final. Yet Gianni Infantino arrives in Colombia under police escort. Officially, he runs a sports federation. In practice, he runs something closer to a small, wealthy state. He's here for the inauguration of Colombia's new president. Greeted personally by Ramón Yesurún, his closest ally in South American football. Alejandro Domínguez, president of the continent's football body, calls this year's World Cup.
I think that this have shown that the 48 teams was totally successful.
We stand with Gianni, he says. This summer, for the first time in a decade, that state very nearly collapsed. This is the story of how he built that power and why it's suddenly cracking. Let's start with how the job actually works. FIFA has 211 member associations, more countries than the United Nations. Uniting them means Infantino travels constantly, on an executive jet loaned to him by Qatar Airways. In April, his team requested a motorcade normally reserved for heads of state. Local authorities said no. His salary has roughly tripled since he took office, to around £4 million a year. FIFA's development funding flows through his office to all 211 associations, and that funding buys loyalty. Loyalty, in turn, buys votes.
Total number of valid votes for Gianni Infantino, 115.
Before this year's World Cup, 111 associations had already declared their support for his re-election, enough on its own to guarantee him a fourth term as FIFA president. The relationship that explains most of what's happened since, the 45th and 47th US president, Donald Trump. It goes back to 2018, when Trump hosted him at the Oval Office to discuss the World Cup bid.
But I just want to thank Gianni Infantino for being here. He's the president of FIFA. And Gianni, maybe I'd ask you to say a few words, and then Carlos.
Definitely. Well, thanks, President, for welcoming us here. It's a great honor to be here, and thanks for everything you are doing to support our sport as well.
By May 2025, the two were touring the Middle East together. So closely, Infantino arrived 2 hours late to FIFA's own Congress in Paraguay. UEFA accused him of prioritizing private political interests over football. Its delegates staged a walkout. In December 2025, Infantino gave Trump FIFA's brand new Peace Prize, just weeks before the US moved to depose Venezuela's president and struck Iran from the air. FIFA's own ethics committee never responded to the complaints that followed. In January, Infantino turned up at the first meeting of Trump's Board of Peace, overseeing Gaza's reconstruction. Then came the Balagan affair, an American player sent off during a World Cup game, an automatic ban under FIFA's own rules, until Trump phoned Infantino directly, asking him to review it.
And that wasn't a foul. That wasn't even an infraction. That was two guys running full speed that happened to crash into each other. You can't take your foot and properly place it on somebody else's foot when you're going, no, these were two great athletes that got tangled up. He didn't do anything wrong, and he's our best player or one of our best players, a very vital player. And he gave him a red card. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't think it meant much. Then I started hearing that means he can't play in the next game. At least that's very unfair. That's, it's one thing to penalize somebody for the game, but how do you penalize them for a game that hasn't been played yet? It's very unfair. You can't do that. So, yes, I asked for a review by FIFA.
FIFA suspended the ban. Balagan played on. On the World Cup's final weekend, the two men appeared together at Trump Tower. Trump said he'd called the FIFA president, who'd made another great decision. Soon after the competition ended, it went much further than a phone call. FIFA announced it was selling a slice of the World Cup to outside investors. And the firm leading that deal had been founded by Joshua Kushner, Jared Kushner's brother. Donald Trump's own family was suddenly inside FIFA's business plan. Which raises an obvious question. Why would Infantino risk that? Because it wasn't the first time he'd done something like it. It was the fourth. Start with Qatar, the smallest country ever to host a World Cup. In 2011, its state investment arm bought Paris Saint-Germain. Qatar's own government called the strategy exactly what it was: soft power. A small state buying global relevance through football. Critics have a blunter word for it: sports washing. Next, Saudi Arabia, running that same playbook at a completely different scale. Its sovereign wealth fund bought 80% of Newcastle United in 2021 and poured billions more into sport under one plan: Vision 2030.
The host of the FIFA World Cup 2034 will be Saudi Arabia.
FIFA awarded Saudi Arabia the 2034 World Cup outright. Nobody else even applied. Then Russia, offering something neither Qatar nor Saudi Arabia could: legitimacy. Russia hosted the World Cup in 2018, 4 years after annexing Crimea from Ukraine. In 2019, Putin personally awarded Infantino Russia's Order of Friendship for organising it. 3 years later,
this is BBC News. I'm Lucy Hockings. Our top stories. Russia launches a full-scale attack on Ukraine from multiple directions. Ukrainian CCTV captures these images of the Russian military crossing the border from Crimea to the south.
FIFA suspended Russian teams from competition, but whatever legitimacy hosting the tournament brought, it had already been secured. This year, Infantino said the ban should now be lifted. 3 kinds of power, 3 currencies: state wealth, sovereign wealth, political legitimacy. Infantino had brokered all of them. Trump was simply the 4th currency he decided to try: private American capital. So here's exactly what he'd proposed. On the 28th of July, FIFA announced a new company, Forward Enterprise, valued at $20 billion, roughly £16 billion. FIFA would sell 21% of its commercial and ticketing business to outside investors. That alone would unlock $4.2 billion in cash. The lead investor? Thrive Eternal, Joshua Kushner's firm. UEFA's response was blunt. The current FIFA leadership has not only lost UEFA's confidence, but also that of many other members of the football family. US Congressman Jamie Raskin called it FIFA going directly into business with the Trump family. UK Prime Minister Andy Burnham said it plainly.
Football does not belong to investors.
The Football Association said it hadn't even been consulted and called itself deeply concerned. UEFA threatened to boycott every FIFA competition unless the plan was scrapped completely. CONCACAF and Asia's Football Confederation objected too. FIFA's chief operating officer said staff had been deceived. He called it a project of one person. Even Trump, when asked, denied he'd discussed the plan with Infantino at all. In the early hours of the 1st of August, FIFA announced the plan will not proceed. UEFA wasn't finished. It's now demanding an independent valuation of that 21% stake. It suspects FIFA was about to sell football's biggest asset for far less than it's worth. UEFA is now considering legal action. Infantino apologized, but he didn't disappear. Days later, a cavalcade of blacked-out Mercedes rolled into FIFA's headquarters in Rabat, Morocco. Infantino had summoned a small group from FIFA's management board to discuss the same 21% sale. It looked less like retreat and more like regrouping. Meanwhile, according to reports, Infantino was calling Trump privately over and over. He reportedly sought a meeting with the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. The State Department denied one was ever planned. Wales became the first football association to publicly withdraw support for his re-election. England followed within days, then Serbia, then Sweden. The 111 votes that once made re-election a formality suddenly looked far less certain. UEFA's boycott threat still stands. It'll be tested within the month. At the FIFA Under-20 World Cup, kicking off in Poland. Which brings us back to Colombia and that runway reception. Outside Europe, in federations kept afloat by Infantino's funding, the loyalty hasn't moved. The real question isn't whether Gianni Infantino still has allies. It's whether football has finally reached the point where even they can't protect him.